found that I was pregnant, I had no idea I was about to experience one of the rarest and one of the most high-risk pregnancy there is, which is the monodyne twin pregnancy. Hi guys, karibu kwa familia yetu. Welcome back to my channel where motherhood meets self-care and marriage thrives on teamwork. If you're new here, my name is Shansei. I share all things balancing motherhood, marriage, and self-care. I'm a Congolese mom to 4 kids ages 6 and under, and 2 of those are identical twins, which is why we're here today. I am so excited for this video because we are talking all things twin pregnancies. Finding out I was pregnant was a big enough surprise, but finding out it was twin, that was a whole other thing. So on today's video, I'm sharing my pregnancy journey with monodyne twins from the moment I found out at 6 weeks to all the complications I faced to the closely monitoring of my pregnancy, hardest part of this pregnancy, and quite frankly how it compares to my regular pregnancy. If you're pregnant with twins or are curious about twin pregnancies, this video is for you. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I found that I was pregnant, I had no idea I was about to experience one of the rarest and one of the most high-risk pregnancy there is, which is the monodyne twin pregnancy. Things first, you need to understand the different twin types. Most people think there are just 2 types of twin pregnancy, which is fraternal twins and identical twins, but there are actually 4 different types of twin pregnancy. All these different types of pregnancy determine how high risk your pregnancy is. The first one being dizygotic fraternal twins. These twins are typically in 2 separate sacs. Dizygotic fraternal twins are 2 separate eggs fertilized by 2 separate sperms. They each have their own placenta and amniotic sac. Next, we have monozygotic twins. These are typically identical twins. We have different type of identical twins. Number 1 being di-di twins. This is when a single fertilized egg splits into 2 separate embryos. Each baby has its own placenta and amniotic sac. Next up, we have monodyne twins. This is when the twins share a placenta and have a small membrane splitting their sac. Last, we have mono twins, and this is when they share both the placenta and the amniotic sac. So if you've seen the iconic video of me finding out I have twins, I actually found out I was pregnant with the twins at about 6 weeks, so I was very early on, and my doctor was able to still see that there were 2 of them in there. After I found that I was having twins, my doctor told me that I'm gonna need to see her plus a maternal-fetal medicine doctor, which is just a high-risk doctor. At first, she had no idea whether I was having di-di twins, monodyne twins, or mono twins. Simply too early for her. So I had to wait about 2 weeks before I went to see the high-risk doctor. And when I got my appointment to go see her, I was about 9 weeks pregnant at that point. So at that appointment, they're able to do all the scans. They did an ultrasound to find out what type of twins I'm having so they can determine how high risk my twins were. That's when I found that I was having monodyne twins. And honestly, I had no idea about all the different types of twins. So I didn't even know what that meant. And she took the time to sort of explain to me what that will look like for me. At that appointment, they also typically will explain to you some of the risks that come with carrying monodyne twins or mono twins. The biggest risk that comes with carrying this type of pregnancy is twin-to-twin transfusion, or TTT. Twin-to-twin transfusion is a condition where one twin is getting more blood flow than the other, which makes sense because they're sharing an umbilical cord. The next one was selective intrauterine growth restriction. This is where one twin grows slower due to unequal placenta sharing. And they also just told me that sometimes they are worried about cord complications since the twins are sharing a placenta. Sometimes they can have issues with blood flow through the umbilical cord. I told this personally. She didn't tell me it was gonna happen to me. She was just saying this is just typically what they're worried about. But she's like, we don't see anything, we don't foresee anything with you as of now. On a typical pregnancy, you have appointments every 2 months, sometimes every month, but typically your appointments are very spread out. You got like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and then your ultrasound. I had to go every 2 weeks at the time. So when I went back on my 2nd week, at this point I'm about maybe 11 to 12 weeks. This is when they actually found an issue with my pregnancy. They did notice that the blood flow between the twins was very strange. It wasn't as, I guess, smooth as I would have liked it to look like. But both of the twins were healthy and they were both growing at the same rate, so they could not say it was twin-to-twin transfusion. This is when they gave me 2 options. They said, because we don't know what this condition is exactly and it looks like the blood flow could stop at any time, we can keep you in the hospital and just have you hospitalized. Remember, I'm like 12 weeks at this point, and have you hospitalized the whole time. We can monitor you daily. So this is when I would have to go to the hospital every day for them to do an ultrasound. And the ultrasound typically looks like them doing an anatomy scan. So if you have kids, you know that the anatomy scan at 20 weeks is where they scan everything, how the baby is growing, how big they are, their blood flow. And these appointments literally take an hour. But when you have twins, they take about 2 hours because they're scanning all the twins. And the reason it was an anatomy scan was because they wanted to make sure that both of the twins are equally healthy. And the best way to do that was anatomy scans. So because I also had like a 6-month-old at home at the time, it wasn't possible for me to be hospitalized the whole time. So I opted to go in every day and do the anatomy scan because one, it just wouldn't have worked out for my family. Now I personally, this took such an emotional toll on me because I felt like if anything was to happen to me while I was pregnant and I declined to be hospitalized the whole time, then that would be on me. Like if anything happened, because there really was no way of telling whether or not the blood flow stopped between the twins. But one thing that my doctor told me was even if you're hospitalized and you're here, we wouldn't be able to tell because even if you're here, we're not doing a full anatomy scan the whole time. The only thing you get here that you may not get at home is us just monitoring the kid's heart rate and seeing how they're acting. But there's also ways to do that at home. So that gave me a little bit of peace of mind that I didn't make the wrong choice, but ultimately it still was very, it was very emotionally taxing. It felt like I'm always just on edge. And it was one of those pregnancies where I had to really tap into my faith, especially because it was out of my hands. First, I became really obsessed with like fetal heart monitoring. I bought a bunch of different fetal heart rates to monitor their heart rates, but ultimately, I remember my husband and I sat down and he was like, babe, this is not healthy. You are obsessing over their heart rate. You can't do anything but think about their heart rate. We need to pray about this and we just need to enjoy this pregnancy the best we can. And quite frankly, that is when I stopped. I had to stop with the heart monitoring. But I'm a mom, so I kept, you know when you were pregnant and you're pressing to feel their little feet, so I always did that. And I began to kind of understand their activities while they were in my belly. While I'm doing this, I am going to the hospital every single day to get that full anatomy scan. When it comes to twin pregnancies, most of the time 35 weeks is considered full term. I was not expected to go to 35 weeks. They wanted to make it as close to 35 weeks as possible, but because we found the complications so early on at 12 weeks, they were just trying to make it to a space where I can keep my baby safe. If I was to give birth between 21 to 22 weeks, then the hospital would most likely not try to put my baby in the NICU or to keep my baby breathing, even if they were born breathing. There was a lot of reasons behind that, which I personally do not agree with, and it was so depressing to think about because babies can survive even as early as like 19 or 18 weeks, but I don't know. You know, I'm not a doctor, so I was told that the risk of them surviving that is so low that most of them won't try. So during this time, I was just praying that my babies make it to, quite frankly, survival rate. I was just praying that we make it to 21 weeks, to 22 weeks, to a place where they can at least, they have a fighting chance. That's really what I was feeling because I've been basically told, like, before you get to this space, your babies aren't worth saving. That's what it felt like. Now, was that what they were saying? No, but that's exactly what it felt like to me. You're telling me that if my baby is born at 20 weeks, even if they could possibly survive, you won't try. And it used to break my heart. So the very, very first few weeks of me going to the hospital every day being monitored, I'm just praying that we make it to 21 weeks, to 22 weeks. When I finally get to the point where my babies can be in the NICU and safe, you would think, okay, there's nothing else to worry about. You can take a breath. No. Now I'm worrying about what complications come with when they're born. So for example, if they were born between 22 and 23 weeks, their brain is going to be severely underdeveloped. So they'll be born with an underdeveloped brain, which could of course change the entire course of their life. Lungs would also be severely underdeveloped, which means they will be born not being able to breathe on their own. Heart and circulatory system issues as well if they're born that early. They would have digestive system issues, feeding issues. And now I'm thinking about the ethicality of it and the quality of life that they would have if they're born that early. So throughout that time, I am struggling with all of that. Again, I am still going to my weekly checkups and just hoping that I make it one more week, because with each week I can breathe a little bit lighter, because I'm like, okay, which is, it's insane to think about, right? That 1 week can make such a huge difference when you're pregnant, but that's truly how it is. That 1 week can be the difference between your baby having lungs that are fully developed and them not having fully developed lungs. I personally was just shooting to make it to 35 weeks, and I was praying that we're gonna make it to 35 weeks. I wasn't necessarily bedridden. I wasn't necessarily on bed rest, so I was still able to move around. I was still able to walk around, take care of my younger kids. The only reason I was gonna be stuck in the hospital was so they can do the monitoring. And since they were monitoring me, I was free to do whatever I can. My doctor actually told me to pack a bag the minute I hit 23 weeks. He was like, pack a hospital bag, because you never know. And I was going at Johns Hopkins Hospital, Sibley Memorial Hospital in Washington, D.C. Took my maternity pictures at about 30 weeks. I was so happy to just make it to 30 weeks. I was like, wow, I can't believe we're here. I was feeling very hopeful, because every scan, every day was beginning to be the same. To the high-risk doctor's office, my sonographer, which I loved her name was Amber. We pretty much became besties. Like, we'll yap it out. She spent 2 hours doing the scans. I would be on my computer typing it away, you know, doing whatever, because it was literally every day. We spent Christmas there, New Year's there, we spent my birthday there. Like, we were there every single day since 12 weeks to 32 weeks. I did go see one more specialist at Johns Hopkins Baltimore, who essentially just gave me the same news, saying there wasn't much they can do besides just monitoring. So when we got to 32 weeks, I went to my usual monitoring scan, and when I got there, I remember the biggest difference between that scan and my usual scan is that my sonographer was quiet. And also, it used to take her like 2 hours to do this, but this time around, she went in, and maybe like 30 minutes later, she goes, I'll be right back. She walked out, and next thing you know, my doctor comes back and he goes, hey Shanse, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm good. I was with my mom and my sister, and we were actually preparing to go do a whole tour in Washington, D.C. because they had come in because they were thinking I'm going to give birth at like 35 weeks. So they were coming in to prep for me to give birth. And they were like, oh, how are you feeling, Shanse? I was like, oh, I'm good. And we're gonna go do a tour of Washington, D.C. So I was gonna go to my hospital to doctor's appointment, spend my 2 hours, do my sonogram, and then walk off and go do a little tour of the monument. My doctor come back in and goes, are you ready to meet your daughters today? I was like, no thanks. I'm gonna meet them at 35 weeks. And he laughs and he goes, I know you, and I know you haven't packed a bag, but we have to deliver your twins. One of your twins is not getting blood flow. It looks like the blockage is happening now. He was like, it looks like the blood flow between the twins has stopped, and baby A, which was Afia, is no longer getting any blood flow. We need to get these girls out of you in the next hour. Flipped out. Delivered the kids at Sibley Memorial Hospital because their NICU wasn't equipped to handle anybody earlier than 34 weeks, and I was 32 weeks. I was 31 weeks, almost 32 weeks. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. Your husband's gonna follow you. You guys are gonna go to Johns Hopkins Baltimore, and your mom and sister can follow you there. I didn't have a bag packed. I wasn't ready for anything. My mom and my sister ended up going home, and my husband and I went to Johns Hopkins Baltimore. When I tell you guys, this was the scariest, most insane thing that ever happened to me. It was like a scene from Grey's Anatomy. My doctor that was supposed to deliver the twins was in Boston. So my high-risk doctor told me, the doctor delivering your baby has been alerted. She's in a helicopter from Boston and will be there when you get there. Baltimore is about an hour from DC. So he was like, you guys will be arriving around the same time. You'll be fine. Go to Baltimore. My husband and I go to Baltimore. I am freaking out to Baltimore, and it's like a scene from Grey's Anatomy. There's a doctor all around. There are doctors everywhere. I can't even remember what happened. Next thing you know, I'm in a hospital gown, and I have 2 people working on me trying to get a vein. They have a really hard time finding veins for me. I have 2 other people working to get a vein on the other side. And then we have the twins, both of them have a different doctor, because they each have their own nurse team. So I have 2 more people working on trying to find a heart rate for the twins. They are trying to get my blood type. My husband is rattling off all of my different medication and all my different allergies. And while that's going on, Our doctor finally comes in and told my husband to suit up because time for my C-section, and he takes this cute video of me and we're like, we're ready to meet you. I'm gonna show you guys a video from this labor and delivery. I think my husband took some great film from when he tried to take as many videos as possible, but they rushed me off to like an emergency C-section. It was really insane because one, I knew that twins were early, so I knew that likely meant they're gonna have to be in the NICU. I didn't know how big they were gonna be. I almost didn't even know if they're gonna look like little babies or they're just like, I didn't know what to expect. So Afia came first, baby A, because she was the one that was lacking oxygen and they couldn't find her heart rate. When she was born, she wasn't breathing. They gave her a CPAP and we finally got her to cough, and I finally heard her crying. And then it was time to take a Tara, but before they got a Tara, medication they gave me to numb me kind of wore off, and I could literally feel the hand of the doctors in my freaking stomach. So I passed out from the pain, and my husband ended up like telling them like something is going on, like she can feel. It was insane, you guys. So they gave me more medications, which pretty much almost knocked me out. I don't remember too much as far as when Atara was born. I passed out after that, and I just remember waking up in the postnatal care or the post-op, and I'm like, where are my babies? Where are my babies? I want to see my babies. Where are my babies? My husband's coming down, and they're like, they're in the NICU, but we have to take care of you first before we can take you to go see them. So I did not see my twins after giving birth to them until about like, I think it was like 7 hours after I gave birth, and that's when I finally got to hold my twins. I'm going to show you guys a video of me holding my twins for the first time. Nothing can prepare you to give birth and then to see your babies needing support to breathe. I think that experience to me was one that not only makes me thankful for the little things like air and breath, but just confirms that God is real. It just confirms that there are things that are unexplainable, because the girls were born and they were so perfect, they were so beautiful, they were so tiny, and I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my God, they're too small and this world is too cruel. But they got me through this pregnancy was not only really taking the time to understand and ask questions whenever doctors said things. I used to have to tell my doctors, please slow down, I don't understand that term. Also, I had to simply just tell them, this makes me really sad. This is really confusing to me. What does this mean? How do I need to alter my life to fit this diagnosis? I had to be very, very specific with my question, really strongly advocate for myself. I did not want to leave the hospital with questions. I wanted to leave the hospital with understanding. I also had to make sure I understood what each of the decisions meant to me, and really doing research but not overdoing research, understanding the risks but also simply just understanding what you can do about it and what you can't do about it. Like things that were outside of my control, and then I let them stay outside of my control. I just try to focus on things that I can control, and the things that I could control was one, trying to do what my doctor said to the T, right? Going to every single appointment, eating as healthy as I can, walking during the pregnancy, right? And closely monitoring my kids' movement and learning their schedule. That was very helpful. Yeah, babies can be very unpredictable, but they also tend to have a little schedule later on, and that was very helpful to me as well. And also just having the correct support system. Because there were many times where I needed to stay in the hospital longer and my husband had to take over with our kids. There are many times where I just simply needed to cry and to vent, and I had my mom there and I had my sister there. Like the right support would get you through it. And honestly, this one was gonna sound a little crazy, but it was really about enjoying the pregnancy. I tried my best to enjoy the pregnancy. So I took a lot of pictures, you know, I danced with my babies, I talked to them. I tried to enjoy the pregnancy as much as I can despite the fear that came with it, and I think that really helped me get through it. And I also celebrated every milestone. I celebrated 20, I celebrated 22, 23. I celebrated every milestone, and I congratulated myself and my babies for making it there, and that's really all that I could do. Really, monodyte twins might be a high risk pregnancy, but it's not that we can't get through it. I know many mamas who had monodiap pregnancies and made it to 35 weeks. If you're one of them, please let me know how far you made it. I also know that with monodiap pregnancies, it is not going to be your typical pregnancy. It's better not to compare yourself to other pregnancy and simply just enjoy your journey with close monitoring and speaking with your doctors and early intervention and just finding out early in general. You can have a long and healthy monodiap pregnancy. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to deliver vaginally because they told me early on that the way the girls were set up, one of them was foot down. I wasn't gonna deliver vaginally, and they also warned me ahead of time that most likely it might be like an emergency situation like what happened, so they weren't gonna wait for me to try delivering vaginally. But I know lots of moms who had monodiap twins who do deliver vaginally, so that's also an option if that's what you want. So you just have to advocate for yourself in that setting as well. Just know your body, know yourself, and really know your babies early on, and make sure you have the correct support around you. It's just really my experience with a monodiap pregnancy. I want to speak to the moms who are currently experiencing this very, very scary pregnancy. You're not alone. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to make it through. Your babies are gonna be fine. Your babies are gonna be fine. Yes, it's scary, but man, babies are so resilient. Babies are so resilient, and you're doing everything you can to keep him here. I'm proud of you. You're gonna make it through. The pregnancy is scary, but we got this. And I just want to leave you with, my twins are now 5 years old. They're beautiful, they're funny, they're hilarious, and I can finally look back at that pregnancy like, oh my god, did I really have 2 babies? Like 4 foot and like 4 little hands and 10 fingers? Well, no, 20 fingers and 20 toes in my belly. It makes absolutely no sense what our bodies can do, but our bodies really are incredible. They really are incredible, and you got this. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Thank you so much for being here. Please share your pregnancy experiences with me. Share how yours went. I'm sure it could help another mom in the process. I'm going to link the video of my NICU experience with twins below, and let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm happy to talk more twin pregnancy or just anything you guys want to hear about. I appreciate you always supporting me. I appreciate all your comments, all your likes, all your shares, and don't forget to find me on all the other channels. And as always, thank you for watching, and asante sana.